Hello, and welcome to the first episode of 001 Radio, the show where we take a look at varying mediums of any kind of art, whatever you want to call it, and do weird look through things. Today, I'll be one of your hosts, Ryan, and I'm joined by my co-host.
Ben. That's my name. I'm Ben, and I'm a co-host of this show, as Ryan is also a co-host of the show, because you can do that.
Yeah,
you don't have to.
That's what a co-host is, yeah. You nailed it right on the head. Today we're starting Toradora. Very excited to be here.
I'm so excited to be
we forgot the
in this chair that
obligatory
I sit
shitty
in
joke.
all the time.
Oh, at least we have the obligatory talking over each other. That's like really nice.
It's good.
All right, so I think our obligatory startup shitty joke for today is bad podcast, don't listen to it. Bad show, don't watch it. Bad people, don't like them.
That's a very important one. The last one there. Don't like us, because if you do, big mistake.
You'll be disappointed.
You'll end up regretting your decision for the rest of your life, probably.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start this off. So the way we're handling this, the Toradora section of this podcast is, each week we're gonna be looking at a different arc. A pseudo arc is what we're gonna call them, because Toradora doesn't necessarily have straight arcs, from my knowledge. And the important thing here is that I'm approaching from a first-time watcher standpoint. I watched like 7 episodes of the show like 10 years ago and don't remember it, so I'm in a good position. And Ben has seen the entire thing and knows it well and enjoys it. So
many times. This would be. I rewatched it before this idea came into our heads for the third or fourth time. I don't remember anymore. So it's a good show, and I really enjoy it for all that it is.
Yeah, so that's going to be the format for like us knowing things, and I'm not going to watch ahead each week. I'll only have seen to the point we're talking about. So for today, that's going to be the first 2 episodes. After this, we're going to be aiming to do probably 3 to 5 episodes per podcast, depending on what feels like a good break-off point. We were planning to do more for this episode, but there's actually a really nice break-off point at the end of episode 2. And there's a lot to talk about in these 2 episodes. So
yeah. I'm going to try my very best not to get ahead of the 2 episodes. We have a pretty expansive note sheet here, so I think I should be okay. But it might happen. Don't worry about it.
The note sheet is a bit of a problem. It's large. We have a diagram.
We've got a chart. We've got everything. This shit is...
Yeah, and I keep calling the main characters different things as well in it. And I'm like,
yeah.
For some reason I dropped Tyga's name.
So expect painful inconsistencies, but... That's part of the charm, I think. So
painful inconsistency, but it's probably going to be correct. So
yeah, it's inconsistently
not
correct.
wrong, just inconsistent.
Yeah.
So I think we should first talk about how the show like starts up, right? So immediately we're introduced to the character of Ryuji.
Yeah, and Taiga as well. I mean, they both do the same painful, not really painful, but monologue about some thinly veiled analogy about love or whatever.
Yeah, it's like wanting to belong as a person or something and feeling, left out, and not necessarily left out, but being an outcast, good old
because
societal
fun fact,
pariah. They're
both left out.
Yeah.
And that kind of is the point of their relationship beginning off.
Yep. So there's Ryuji, something I like in the first episode, the very, very start. Ryuji is like set up to be a nice guy who just looks like an asshole all the time because of his eyes, and he like has a magazine. It's like fluffy bangs make you look less intimidating, and it doesn't work. And I think it's just a nice character moment.
There's a lot of jokes, obviously, that his character is kind of centered around that looking bad but being nice kind of thing.
Yeah,
and
but
that
it's a really nice
ties into his daddy issues as well, which we'll get to.
Yeah, that is.
Which is one of the things that I think I have a problem with this show, that I don't know if we've really gotten to it yet, but where it kind of like, it's like at once joking about everything, but then it also takes itself pretty seriously at at the same thing. Like it makes jokes about its own serious points,
Yeah, so this is a good moment to mention show backstory. So the entire reason we're doing this is because Ben and I had a pseudo argument about how
it was heated.
It was heated.
It was heated over dinner. We really actually got mad, or at least I did for quite a bit.
Yeah. So there were when I first watched Toradora, I stopped watching it because I really didn't like some parts of it. But looking back, that may have been where I was at the time when I was watching it. Was maybe not the best place to be in to watch a show like this, but at the same time, I think there are issues that are still relevant. I definitely have enjoyed it more the second time through. And by second time, I mean I only watched a couple of episodes the first time, so it's really only the first like few that I actually have any recollection of. But I'm not seeing some of the issues I had, or some of the issues I did see are less important. But we'll go more into that as they come up. But then we have the OP, Ben.
We have the OP, and it's one of those OPs that I think grows on you over time. Because definitely, when I first started watching it, when I watched the show the first time anyway, I didn't like it very much. But now, I headbang every time I hear it. So, it's one of those OPs where it grows on you, and like, yeah, because the middle part is pretty bad. I mean, it's not even bad. It's just like really standard, really bog standard, like J-pop fare.
Yeah, it sounds like
then,
OP's a lot of romance shows.
Yeah.
But it kicks off really well and it ends really well, in my opinion. It's got like
and I mean the visuals
good
are good enough. They do a good job introducing the characters and kind of their relationship and their personalities. Like that one little bit where they're like walking along. It clearly shows that Minori's, this outgoing person and so forth. So it does what an OP should do, I think. It's not anything like knock your socks off like a Mob Psycho OP or something like that, but
yeah, it's definitely, I think, above par for the time.
Yeah, and the song is definitely noticeable. I mean, they're not noticeable, but unique enough to be, at least in the beginning and the ends, where, you're like, oh man, that's Toradora's OP.
Yeah,
here, come on. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is
Which,
very recognizable.
I will say, we haven't got to it, but the second OP is worse. And the second ED as well, which we'll get to the ED probably at the end of this. But
yeah, we'll talk about the ED when it comes up. Yeah, that's basically the thoughts on the OP. The OP actually did a really good job of making me want to see characters that haven't shown up yet, because I really only remember Ryuji and Taiga from the first time I watched it, and the fact that Minori exists.
The fact that she is a thing.
I completely forgot about Kitamura. So
Kitamura, yeah, the
and he's
most
like a major
important side character in the show, just forgotten about.
Yeah, I just
arguably anyway the most important.
Yeah, did not remember him. Because
they're all pretty important. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the OP thoughts. I'm excited to see blue-haired girl. She looks cute.
She is, but we'll get to that.
I get the feeling there's a baseball episode.
There is. I don't know actually. I don't remember.
At least at some point, there's baseball bats.
There's baseball. There's baseball, but I don't think there's a whole episode.
Yeah. So, all right. So we follow the OP. Then we get to the wonderful notes. So, running theme here. My notes for the first episode are much briefer because originally this was going to be a scripted out video. So these were more like timestamps. Man, speaking is difficult.
English is rough this late in the day.
Yeah, and the notes for like what to look for there. So the first episode is a little less detailed than the ones I have at the second episode, which are a lot more in depth. So after the OP, I have marked down main character daddy issues,
which is one of the main themes, right? Family issues, or one of the main recurring things that Taiga and Ryuji have in common. That's kind of the whole point of the show, really, or at least one of the main points of the show.
Yeah, and I also think this bit is one of the first instances of my problem with a show that I had before and that I still kind of have, is sort of tonal whiplash, is probably what I'd call it, where it goes from that daddy issues kind of serious scene to immediately this kind of comedy scene of students giving Ryuji money because he looks scary.
I don't know if it's just because I'm a bad person, but I don't care that there's tonal whiplash. I feel like that's one of the things that I like about the show in a way.
Yeah,
is that it pokes fun at itself while still being, fairly serious. So you're not crying your eyes out like you would if you were watching something like Your Lie in April or something that's just all right, now you're going to cry and you're not going to stop.
Yeah. I think it's mostly my issue with this particular instance is that I like the two scenes a lot, but I feel like they're a little too close together. So the timestamp between them is the daddy issue scene is at 4 minutes, and the next one is at 4 minutes and 40 seconds. So there's very little time to kind of adjust to the difference. Individually, I like both of those scenes though, especially the money scene. I think it's a really funny way of introducing like how Ryuji is as a person, because he immediately goes to return the wallets and like puts them in the lost and found. It sets up this relationship that it happens a lot.
But what's kind of funny actually as well is they're both people both think that Taiga and Ryuji are both like intimidating. Everybody's scared of him, but Taiga's like the polar opposite, where she looks cute, but she's aggressive, and Ryuji looks scary, and he's like not aggressive. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah,
I guess how that is
like
completely opposite.
Taiga's character in general, in that she's sort of your average tsundere, but also not.
Well, that's the thing. That's one of my main parts about this. Why, I mean, this show is so good and everybody loves it so much, is because she is basically both the quintessential tsundere, but also the perfect tsundere, like the most well done tsundere ever. In like, because you tend to get, when shows do a tsundere, they're really flat. You know, they come out and they're just so blatantly tsundere, and then their progression is just really boring and predictable, because they just kind of fit into that mold. But Taiga's got a lot more depth to her, where she's got, instead of having like the 2-layer tsundere thing where she's got, you know, she hates him but then she doesn't really, Taiga's got like 3, 4, you know, she's got more to her than that.
Yeah, and I think the first episode kind of sets her up as a more standard tsundere. Wow, I butchered that pronunciation so bad. But
who cares?
The second episode does a really good job of like kind of negating everything it just did. And, like it sets you up really, to believe that she'll be super standard. It lays out her
motivations. And that's something that I think a lot of the characters have that most shows don't, is where they have like really believable motivations, and it makes sense that they would make a lot of these decisions.
Yeah. That's what that's the main thing I do like about these first 2 episodes, is they set up the characters really well. And they also dispel some of the issues that I think the first episode kind of intentionally sets characters up to seem like they have more standard than they are.
That's also one of the things that this show does, is it kind of, while it sets them up as being these cliches, it tears them down and makes them more human as the show goes on. So it's kind of important that you get that framework in your mind, like, okay, this is what everybody else thinks these people are, this is what they look like from the outside or whatever. So then you can really feel like you make a connection as the show goes on, because you start to see beneath that, and you're like, all right, I know these people better than some random jamoke at their school.
Yeah, and the first episode also does this a bit, where there's this confrontation like immediately about a love letter that Taiga has put in the bag of Ryuji by accident. It was meant for Kitamura, who is Ryuji's like best friend at the school, and the person who like knows that he's not scary. And there's this kind of confrontation that happens with the two of them after class, and Ryuji going for his bag, and then Taiga kind of realizing what she's done, and then starting a big scene about getting the bag back. And of course, she doesn't want to tell him that it's a love letter in there. So it does kind of peter out, right? Like they just kind of separate. And
well, it's like she leaves and then comes back in the middle of the night or whatever, and like kicks the shit out of him in his house. Like,
yeah, she gives up very quickly on like getting it back at the school, which I think is interesting. Normally, I think we would have seen that scene play out way faster.
Yeah, it probably would have been just like a one-off joke, like straight there. She would have like hit him over the head or whatever and taken the bag and ran or something, and then you would have been like, ha 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 ha, she's a tsundere, and then like it would have been over.
Yeah. But instead, they use it as a reason to make the characters meet again and realize that they live right next to each other, which is a catalyst for some of the stuff that happens in these 2 episodes.
And indeed, a catalyst for fucking everything that happens from here on out.
Yeah. So we're about halfway through the episode after that confrontation, and it's revealed Ryuji reads the letter, learns that Taiga's got a crush on Kitamura, and he's like very nice about it. Like he's not judgmental at all.
Well, anything. Actually, I mean, the letter's empty at first as well.
Yeah, it's Taiga comes and like confronts him about it.
And he's just like, give it back, give me back my love letter. And then he's like, the note was empty. You
Yeah, it's good to
klutz.
point out that it was empty because I forgot that
Yeah.
story.
And then
beat.
that reveals some of Taiga's insecurities. Wow, she's being characterized right here in episode 1. Crazy.
Yeah, and there's this whole scene where she's like attacking Ryuji for the note, and then eventually they start to talk, and Ryuji's like, "It was empty. It's
Yeah.
not. There's nothing here."
Well, because over and over again, Taiga's that tsundere act is more just her way of like putting up a wall and not like just to avoid connecting with people, as opposed to being like her actual personality. So
Yeah, and I'd even say it's
Yeah.
not necessarily just to avoid connection, but more to avoid pain. Like if
And-
you're the one causing the suffering.
ironically enough, to avoid confrontation, because
Yeah,
I mean
no one's
she's
gonna confront you
physically
if you're scary.
confronting people. Yeah, she's physically confronting people, but not confronting emotionally or her own emotions and stuff like that. So
Yeah, she's built a reputation for herself, and she kind of uses that as leverage to not have to actually enforce that.
yeah,
But after that, we get into the whole scene of Taiga breaking into the house and everything happens, and then Ryuji's like, "Well, it's really not that embarrassing. I've got this box of stuff about my crush," and he just brings this box out.
of
With,
Minorine. And
like,
honestly, this is one of those
notebooks.
scenes where you're kind of like,
Oh,
that was a bit. It was a bit forced, because I mean he didn't have to do that. Nobody would really do that.
yeah, he
He
didn't.
just,
I think
we
was.
just needed to introduce both of their crushes.
I don't even know if that's
But it's
necessarily true.
fine.
I think
But I
Ryuji
feel
just
like
doesn't
I think
know.
yeah, I think that's
many
just
people.
Ryuji's. Yeah,
Ryuji is like finally meeting someone who he feels he can talk to about this stuff with, and he kind of just launches at the opportunity and goes way deeper than he should.
well, and then he starts like trying to explain himself out of it because he realizes Taiga's like, Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
what is wrong with you?
Well, he also realizes that
of
Minoru's
course-
name is in it.
Yeah, that's true.
That was the
I
big
guess
thing.
I guess he didn't think that he was giving anything away.
Yeah, he thought it was just like a show, but then he realizes
Yeah, and he
there
didn't
was
know
names.
that Taiga was friends with her either. So
Yeah, and it turns out Taiga and Minori are basically like Kitamura and Ryuji. They're close friends.
Yeah.
Which is where we hatch a plan.
the plan,
And Taiga tells Ryuji that he'll obey her like a dog.
right? This is where she becomes his dog, and then they get into a bunch of shit for the rest of the show.
Yeah, this bit I did feel was a bit over dramatized. It's probably the right word. It seems like Taiga's pushing it real far.
I don't think it is, because she's just giving her again. She goes back. She like defaults to this rough thing when really what she wants is to have somebody help her. Like she's trying to make a connection, but she doesn't want to be like, oh, help me and I'll help you. So she's like, all right, you're just gonna obey me and I'll do you a favor, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean the big thing
She's
with this
trying to
is
just
that,
keep herself in control.
yeah, she doesn't like enforce any of this like weird dog stuff. It just kind of is brought up.
It's just kind of the way that they were like interact with one another.
Yeah, and then it's essentially they kind of agree to help each other, and they're like, all right, we're gonna try and get each other with our crushes. And that sets up the events of the next episode, and then probably for a bunch after. I really don't remember past episode 2, really.
Yeah, I mean, this sets up the whole show. Not giving anything away about that, I don't think. And it goes on- Yes.
Taiga and Ryuji are totally into each other.
At the end of episode 1. No, I
No,
would
not-
say
not even at the end of
not at the
episode
end of episode 1, but I think very
But
quickly.
it's very clear
it's
when
like
the show starts
painfully
that
obvious
this
by
is
the end
main
of
couple.
like. Well, yeah, I mean it's named after them, right? So
What?
the show is named after them.
You just blew my mind.
I just blew your mind. Think about this: Tora, right? Tiger.
Yep.
Dora,
Dragon.
dragon.
Yep.
Ryuji means dragon.
Yeah, I didn't make that connection.
I know they say that somewhere in the show.
They
but-
probably do.
No, I know they do because
In
I
fact, I
remember
think
the
they
line.
might say it in one of these 2 episodes because I vaguely remember.
Yeah, they do.
Actually, no, I think they introduce themselves as someone calls Ryuji like the dragon, and then Taiga is like the palm top tiger.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's literally a line in the show. I don't know if it's happened yet in episode 1 to 2, but there's literally a line where Ryuji and Tiger are like, "Yep, we're a tiger and dragon. It's like, okay.
Yeah, so they hatched the plan, and
Yeah.
all things considered, decent plan.
Yeah. I think it's a good plan. Why not?
Yeah,
The problem,
maybe
of course,
two socially
is
inept people really aren't capable of hooking each other up with
well,
their
right.
friends.
So they've got to realize, I think, but they're too inept. But like, you got to think, if one of them has had so much trouble even speaking to their respective crush, how the fuck are they going to hook somebody else up with somebody? They don't know how they don't know how anything works. So yeah, obviously it's fundamentally flawed.
Yeah, I mean, when you
but
really think about it,
it's also the butt of all the jokes. So
the end of next episode has a confession in it, but the big thing is like, I can't really call that Ryuji did anything
no, he
to
really
really
didn't.
help that. Am I
Yeah,
am I
she kinda
missing?
just
I
went-
don't think so.
No, we just scrubbed through this a bit. Episode
Yeah.
2. I don't think so. I think
It's like it almost
pretty
seems like it
sure-
would have happened anyway.
Taiga just. Oh, it's dubbed. Jesus.
Yeah, I think what happens is that Taiga basically just does it herself. So really, this plan kind of goes in the shit.
Episode 2,
immediately.
they do that basketball thing.
Yeah, we'll
and-
get to that. We'll get to that. But yeah, at the end of the first episode, we see Aisaka's apartment. Taiga's Aisaka. I'll interchangeably call her literally everything. So yeah, we see her apartment, which is sad. It's in a bad
yeah.
state.
It's in a bad way, and this is when we get introduced to even more characterization. Because, fun fact, as I said earlier, she's also got family problems.
issues.
Wow,
Yeah, it's
hers is a bit more
pronounced, maybe.
sad. It's a bit more severe, I think,
It
because
seems like Ryuji's
Ryuji at
dealing
least still
with his
has.
better.
Well, Ryuji's still got his mom, so he's got that. He's got the bird.
Yeah, his mom's kind of a
Inko-chan.
deadbeat, though.
Yeah, but his mom's nice still. That's the thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Ryuji has a family.
Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
Ryuji's also. This isn't really relevant to what we're talking about. Ryuji's a good cook, though.
Yeah, he cooks because his mom
I would
can't
eat his
cook.
rice.
I would eat his rice. That sounds like an innuendo.
Yeah,
but-
that sounds like a euphemism. It's not. I just want rice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they kind of bond over food a couple of times. So
Well, that's. Again, one of the things that they live next to each other, so Taiga comes over every night for dinner, basically.
yeah, they kind of get into this rhythm. I don't know how much time is directly passing between
It's literally. I think
the
it's just a
events of
couple
like
of
episode
days.
1 and 2. It's a couple of days because people comment on the fact that Ryuji and Taiga are starting to go to school together, and like are seen going into
Yeah.
similar buildings. Because it's a plot
Yeah.
point in the second episode that people get confused and think Ryuji and Taiga are a couple, which they're not. But it's understandable where the confusion is coming from because they live right next to each other, they walk to school together, and they're talking constantly. So it does kind of look like it.
Yeah.
And that's the catalyst for most of the second episode. But now, Edie.
The ED is a banger. Okay. Vanilla Salt. That shit is so good. And as the show goes on, you get into the middle where you really start to hit the drama. And let me tell you, it's amazing. It at the end of every episode, it fits the tone like spot on
Yeah, I remember
until it switches halfway through, and then you get mad like I do.
my
Every time.
initial reaction to it is that I like the ED overall. I'm not a huge fan of the vocal style.
You don't like ba ni ra do ru do de. Come on,
No, that's not what I mean. I think it's more the tone and like the pitch.
it's good. I like it. Maybe it's one of those ones that grows on you as well.
Yeah,
I
we'll
don't
see.
remember
My
it ever
opinions will
growing
probably
on me.
change
I
over
think
the
I
course of
liked
this,
it.
but
The second I started watching it,
initial
No, it wa-
impressions, I like
well,
the OP more.
maybe once you finish the show and you attach some of that emotional like value to it that I have, then you'll appreciate it more because I feel like that's when it really becomes the best is when you realize how it ties into the events of the show halfway through and
Yeah.
when it starts to really pick up. So
It'll be possible. I think
There's
it'll be
that.
interesting to see how my opinions change over the course of this.
yeah,
I think my only
Like,
like actual issue with the ED is it's a very standard like girls walking cycle until
oh yeah,
they meet up with the
visually
guys.
it's
Visually, it's
nothing.
very uninteresting.
Visually, it's nothing to write home about.
Yeah, it's very much in the style of every other romance show that I've seen, which is a
But I
lot.
don't think it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about it that's just really calming and nice.
Well, I mean, that's why I think it's kind of tropey to have that style of ED. Is it is like a just a nice way to cap
But
off an
again,
episode, but it's very standard.
yeah, going back to, I think that's just how it fits into the tone of the show. Not so much in the beginning when it's still a lot of jokey fun time, but when it gets into the heavier drama stuff towards the middle, it really
Yeah.
does. So I think we'll have to revisit your opinion as we get towards.
We definitely will. I'll probably
the
make comments
juice.
about my opinions on the OP and ED like every episode of this, because they'll change for certain. I almost feel like I'm probably going to dislike the OP more by the end, and I'll like the ED more. I think that's what's going to happen. Because I do really like the OP as of right now.
The OP or the ED?
The OP, the ED, I'm like middling on. I think it's good.
Okay.
Like musically, visually, it's very boring, and there's parts of the vocals I don't like.
Fair enough.
But I want to talk about
Anyway.
basketball, so let's move on.
Right. Episode 2. Now we've gone full power into the plan because the end of the episode 1 was them basically finalizing everything. So
Yeah, and it's setting up they eat breakfast together now as like a regular thing.
they eat breakfast and dinner, and Ryuji makes Taiga lunch. Like, so yeah.
Yeah, because it's implied Taiga really doesn't cook and only eats
Well,
like
I
convenience
think
store
what-
food at home.
Yeah, Ryuji goes over and is like, "You only have instant ramen or some shit." Like, it was something like that.
Yeah,
You've
it's
only got
Ryuji
boxes
basically
of
goes and
natto.
cleans her
Like, what are you doing? Yeah, no.
apartment.
Yeah, her apartment's bad.
Yeah, real
In
bad.
the way that, I mean, in the way that, what is she like? What are they like?
They're high school.
Juniors,
Yeah,
seniors
they're
in high
not-
school. In a way that a junior or senior in high school living alone in an apartment that is clearly far too large for them.
I don't know if they are.
Would
Are
be.
they? It's a good question. I don't recall
I
what grade
actually
they are.
thinking- At some point during the end of the show, they're close to 18,
Okay, so
like months
probably
away
in
from
that
18.
range.
So they're probably seniors.
We could be wrong, but I'm sure we'll get corrected or we'll correct ourselves
It
next
says it
episode.
somewhere in the show, or at least it's,
I
deducible.
remember it being
I just don't
said.
remember the
I just
exact
don't
numbers.
remember.
Anyway,
Yeah, so we're moving on. There's this little bit where they meet Minori on the way to school, and then Ryuji's like, "Oh, maybe I'll get to walk with them to school," and then nope, Taiga and Minori just leave. I think
Yeah.
it's kind of adorable actually because Ryuji's like almost worried that she'll
because-
think they're together.
again, Taiga's still asserting the dominance. She's like, "You
Yeah.
help me first, and then I'll help you."
Well, there's also isn't there a moment in that where Taiga or Minori almost looks like she's about to make the mistake of them being a couple, but then Taiga's like,
Yeah,
nah.
no. So again, this is that point where you're like, "Oh, Taiga is just putting on that disguise." She's like, it looks like she's just being an asshole and like basically extorting Ryuji, but in reality, she's actually trying to help him too because she's like, "Oh, I don't want this to be a misunderstanding, so I'm just gonna fuck off and walk with my friend."
Yeah, which is good because I think in most other 2000s romance shows, this would have been like a 3
This would have
episode misunderstanding.
this would have been an entire arc. It would have been like, "Oh my god, they were walking together. Jesus Christ, they got to be basically doing it every night." Like
Yeah, it would have been bad.
it would have been something like that. And then it would have been 12 episodes of them trying to clear it up with everybody, and then they would have moved on.
Yeah,
And yeah.
so I'm glad that
But yeah,
doesn't happen.
That is one of the things that I noted quite a few times on my notes was like, this show moves fast. Every
Yeah.
time I rewatch it, I'm like, I'm always still surprised at just how quickly this stuff goes through. Like,
I mean, I'm the
it's 24
kind of
episodes.
person that watched the entirety of Kimi Todoke. That's like
Yeah.
50 episodes of slow. So
of slow pain.
yeah, it's Kimi Todoke is great, by the way, but this is a different base, and it feels almost less romance like at the start, I think, and more
Well,
like
yeah,
kind of like a
it's-
drama comedy.
Rom-com. It's a rom-com.
It
right
feels like
now.
a rom com with less emphasis on the romance at the start.
Yeah, it's basically just a comedy, slice of life kind of thing, but not really.
Yeah, so then
But yeah.
basically nothing important happens until the basketball game.
which is like their first plan.
It's
They're
great.
like, all
Good
right.
scene.
I forget who comes up with it. Doesn't Taiga? Does Taiga
I think it's
yeah.
like a pair plan.
Yeah. Anyway, they're
'Cause
like, all right,
they're
this is
kind of-
gonna be sick. We're
It's
gonna play
convoluted as all hell
basketball.
too.
Yeah.
It's
We're gonna play basketball with them, and it's gonna be fucking rad.
and the thing is, they like decide to, instead of like trying to partner up with their crushes, they partner with each other and then plan to knock out the girl that is partnered with Kitamura. So
Yeah, and so Taiga can take her place.
yeah.
As if that would ever work.
It's great though. I like this plan.
Especially with Kitamura being the nice guy that he is, he would not stick around.
I mean, yeah. What I feel like with this is that this probably is Taiga's plan, and Ryuji is just like either not smart enough or doesn't care to point out the flaws in it, and is just trying to make Taiga feel good about herself. And
No, I don't know, because there's definitely like
it falls apart.
Ryuji looks pretty confident about it as well.
Well, yeah, but I think on a subconscious level, he's a little more reserved about what is going on, and is like just kind of along for the ride. Like he doesn't have any like problems with the plan, but I don't think he had a part in like actively making it. But basically the way it starts out is they're paired up, and Taiga gets worried because Kitamura is paired with a girl, and she thought that Kitamura would be paired with a guy.
Yeah.
And then Ryuji's like, "Oh no, I gotta knock a girl," and he goes for it.
Again, this kind of starts to fuel into the misunderstandings. Just because like Taiga's so eager to be paired with Ryuji in the beginning of the plan, because they're trying to get the plan to go. I just watched it back, and it's like,
yeah,
she raises her hand from the back of the crowd and winds up and stuff. So
yeah, it's like they're very excited about being paired together.
yeah, so they're trying to not be confused, but like as dating. But of course, they're not doing a good job.
At this point, they're not even trying.
That.
It doesn't even cross their minds until later in the episode that this is a thing that would happen.
This is an actual problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely interesting that this is the tactic they take, and I love that Ryuji goes for it, because I think in most other shows, this would have been the, oh no, we're gonna stop our plan and meet later because we can't do it, and instead the show's like, nah,
No, just
that's
go
not
with
our
it.
characters. We're going for it. So Ryuji takes a throw. Turns out Taiga didn't move because she was distracted. Gets hit in the face with a ball. The plan fails, and they go to the nurse.
Yep.
It's great. It's really quite satisfying.
It's just the dank jokes. Yeah.
Yeah, really good commentary.
I forget. I'm scrubbing through to see what happens.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then there's that bit, right? So right after that, it's quickly into like they're cooking or whatever, and there's another plan they're trying to do. But over and over again, Ryuji keeps basically saving Taiga from her own like klutzy nature and stuff,
Yeah.
which is further.
My
like,
notes say Taiga realizes she's big klutz.
Yeah, and that's true.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
it
but
then
she's
kind of
made
goes
cookies.
into
Right after that,
Yep.
they've made cookies, and she's trying to give them to Kitamura, and he just starts running. I don't know why.
yeah.
Actually,
I
I
really
don't know if that's ever.
I'd like
revealed.
justify it as maybe he's afraid of the palm top tiger, but I definitely don't think that's it.
No, because he's a nice guy. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe
And they seem to know each other already. Kitamura and Taiga. At
Like,
least to some
vaguely.
extent. But they're in the same class. They're friendly.
Yeah.
Anyway, she books it up the stairs and falls down. And we get another, like, Ryuji saves Taiga. And they're, like, on the ground. And Ryuji's, like, holding her. And it's all nice and stuff.
It's that moment that happens in every single romance show, although in most of them there'll probably be a little more like touching involved.
Yeah, there'd be, like,
More
Yeah,
misunderstandings.
more misunderstanding. Less, oh man, thanks for actually saving me.
Yeah, and I think the important thing with Toradora here is that it really doesn't rely on that crutch of misunderstandings, because in this moment you'd expect Taiga to react like violently, that, oh no, it's Ryuji's fault, this fucked up. But no, she's actually like just sad that her plan didn't work, and it's kind of touching because there's a scene afterward that's great where they're like Ryuji's trying to console her for the fact that it didn't work. And it's definitely like they feel like friends. It feels a lot less like they're just two people trying to do something and more like they're actually friends.
Yeah. Because, he eats the cookies and is like, oh, they still taste good. And of course,
They're not. They're terrible.
They're not. We find out later that they were really crappy. Because Taiga's like, man, they tasted like garbage. I ate one. But you still said they tasted good. And this is where you realize that in episode 2,
That's
they already
the main
like each
couple.
other. And they refuse to admit it.
And the weird thing is, like, they get very close. I think Ryuji especially kind of realizes that he likes her, but doesn't want to admit it because he's still attracted to Minori.
Well, I think it's this thing where people, myself included, have in the past, where you get this idea in your head that this one person is just, that's it, like that's perfect for you, and you're just so unwilling to like shake that opinion. Like Ryuji, and he has like a box of things, so his attraction to Minori is like part of his identity. He doesn't want to give up that in any way at all, because if he does, then he feels like maybe he's losing something about himself.
Yeah, it might even be that
Because
he
he's
thinks he's like
basically
wasting time.
And that's one of the reasons why I think the relationship between these two and their respective crushes could never have worked, because they've gotten to this point of where it's not even wanting to have a relationship, it's just utter infatuation. Like it's just, they basically worship this other person. And that's clear through Taiga's inability to talk to Kitamura like at all without muttering or stumbling on her words.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing where it's so deeply ingrained in their heads that they like these people, and that's like a part of their identity, so they don't want to give it up.
Yeah, I think that's a good succinct way of explaining it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's going to be the catalyst for a lot of what happens in the next couple of episodes.
Well, yeah, that's the conflict throughout the show. Like that's the sub-conflict, I guess, really.
Yeah.
As everybody else starts to realize, except for them, because they're so damn stubborn.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, after all of this, it's basically... this is where we get to the whole misunderstanding of people thinking they're a couple. So Minori basically confronts them and asks Ryuji to take good care of Taiga, and they're both kind of really confused at this moment. Taiga and Ryuji are, they're like, what's going on? And then Kitamura is like on the fucking roof, like doing anime glasses push, and then they realize that both of their crushes think they're dating. So plan has backfired, everything's wrong, bad.
Yeah, and then they get mad and kick a pole together. Had a little bonding moment, which was nice.
Yeah, it's actually, I really like that. The pole kicking moment is, I think, almost really subtle in what it conveys, while still being like a very dramatic and very character oriented scene. Because it really is like, you'd think maybe Taiga and Ryuji would be almost angry at each other for this, or be like just downtrodden in the fact that their plan didn't work, which they are. Like, they're very upset that it didn't work, but it's not like they're giving up, and they take it better than expected, both of them. And then there's like this bit where they're talking about their family situations.
Well, what I think I like about the pole part is that Ryuji alone would never
We haven't
take his
gotten to the
anger out
pole
like
yet.
that.
Pole's in the future, Ben.
I just talked about the pole.
Yeah, you talked about the poll, but we haven't gotten there yet, right? We're mentioning the poll is about to happen.
Okay,
But
whatever.
before that, there's a scene of them explaining their family situations, and then it's
yeah,
they're talking, essentially talking it out, and then this is when they're walking home. They pass a post.
Yeah, and Taiga just kicks the shit out of it. And what I think is really cool about this, as I was about to say, is Ryuji alone, like if he was walking home, he's not the aggressive kind of guy. He wouldn't take his anger out on a pole. Like he'd probably just go home and stew over it and get all upset. But with Taiga around, you can see that in her own way, she's kind of a positive influence on him, because he's like, oh yeah, let's just vent and kick this pole, and it's great. And they have like this little moment where they both just sit there and kick the hell out of a pole.
It's weirdly adorable.
Because I think it goes to show this early on that they're actually really good for each other as well. It's not just like they like each other and they're nice to each other and that's just kind of why they're going to be together. But no, like Taiga's personality plays really well in making Ryuji happier and a better person. So it's like,
Yeah, it's almost like Ryuji tempers her personality. It's like they kind of
yeah,
even each other out.
yeah, they bounce off each other. Like Taiga's the other half,
Yeah.
basically, of a full human being.
It's like Ryuji
She's the
tends
anger,
to be,
and Ryuji's like the temperament.
yeah. Ryuji's very like not quiet,
together
but
they
he's
make a
reserved almost,
functioning-
I'd say.
Yeah, he's just very.
He keeps his
He's
emotions
reserved, yeah.
inside. Not that he's like shy or anything, but
He's kind of. I mean, yeah, he's kind of a stoic, and I feel like he kind of has to be.
yeah.
That's like, again, from his family situation, is he's basically taken over as the head of the house.
Yeah, he's like learned to deal with stuff that normally people don't learn to deal with until
Very
they're much
mature
older.
for his age.
Yeah, and he has to be. He doesn't really have a choice when
Yeah.
you're in that kind of situation. And Taiga is in a similar situation, but she doesn't have anyone left. Like, she doesn't have her parents in her apartment. So
But she has their money.
yeah, she has their money. So she's like the exact opposite, where Ryuji is kind of living modestly and dealing with the fact that he has like a mother who isn't like making a lot of money, and his family's in a bad situation. His father's in prison. And there's this bit where Taiga is essentially the opposite, where her parents are just rich. She's got a lot of money.
Yeah,
She's in
she's-
like an apartment to herself, but she doesn't have a family.
Yeah. And then Ryuji is there to offer her the family. It's two puzzle pieces connecting together to make a real person.
Yeah, it's definitely fun
It's
to
great.
watch.
It's great.
And I think that also makes it much more sad when you get to the next morning and Taiga is kind of blowing Ryuji off. She's acting like they're not
Well, yeah.
friends anymore.
Well, because they kind of got that wake up call where they're like, "Oh my god, we look like we're a couple. We look we're together, and our plan, working together, is clearly making it worse."
Yeah.
So then
and
she's
I
like,
think
"All
this ties into the post scene as well, because a big moment there is that they manage to kick the post so it tilts. And that's like Taiga's moment where she decides she's not going to like sit down and take the loss. She's going to do something about it. And Ryuji kind of encourages her. And I think then she says that she's going to act like they're just neighbors. They're not friends. They're not anything different. They're just classmates who happen to be neighbors. And Ryuji's kind of sad at this, but at that point, Taiga leaves, and it's kind of this sad note to end that scene on. And then we go to the next day, and Ryuji is kind of like, sees Taiga at school and is going to say hello, but she kind of blows him off.
Yeah.
And of course,
Again, yeah, it's
Yep.
Taiga just trying to be nice in the way that, like, in the way that she knows how, I suppose.
yeah, it's her lack of wanting to have that connection with people that complicates things, essentially.
Yeah.
The like persona she has. And I think you learn in a little bit that she's like this, and like specifically a little more of like blowing him off than she probably would have been otherwise, because she just exploded at the class and explained everything about how Ryuji and her are not dating. They're just
because
neighbors.
she basically made the promise to herself, basically, just to clear off everything up for Ryuji, less so for herself, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And she
then
also
she
she takes the
goes-
time to make it clear that Ryuji isn't a delinquent, which is something that he's never
Yeah.
been able to get people to understand.
Yeah.
I think that's what really shows that she was doing this more than just for herself. She
Yeah, 'cause
also
she could
took
have
the
easily
time.
just not mentioned, like, "Oh, Ryuji's actually a nice guy. Like, fuck you guys." No, but she could have just said, like, "Oh, we're not a couple."
Yeah, and I think
and
it
that
would
would
have
have
been even
been
easier if she managed to shift some blame onto Ryuji. Like, he's not the kind of person I would go out with. But no, she explains that he isn't a delinquent. He's a nice guy. And I think that really shows a lot about both her character and Ryuji's, where Ryuji probably couldn't have done that. I don't think he would have been able to say those things about himself. And
No.
he definitely wouldn't have been able to confront the class. Like,
And then, I mean, even if he did, I don't think it would have gotten through. So that's
Yeah.
kind of like,
so it's
That
another
could've
scene of them playing off of each other. But it's a little more sad because you're like, oh, well, they're not friends anymore.
And then right after that is
Ryuji worrying.
What?
Ryuji's worrying right after that she spent. So Ryuji learns that she did this for
oh
him,
yeah.
and then he's like, she shouldn't be focusing on me. She should be focusing on Kitamura. And like,
Yeah.
that's the other side of that coin, where Ryuji is like now angry, not angry, but kind of like worried that
Yeah.
she spent any focus on him,
They're both caring about each other
and then hating
more
the fact that
in
they care about each
episode
other.
2 than most romance couples care about each other ever at all in an entire show.
It's a good point.
But like serious, real caring, not just like stupid, like, oh, you're really cute. Let's go cuddle on a couch. No, it's like these are actually things that people would actually care about and like should actually care about in a friend's life. Like it's not. It's good. It's good stuff.
It's believable as well. Like none of this is super blown out of proportion.
I mean, it's a bit melodramatic, but I suppose high school is.
Yeah, absolutely. But
so
it's an anime.
Yeah, I mean it's a high school anime. So you've got like
it's a high
2
school
tiers of
romance.
melodramatic, and it's still not even as melodramatic as like Anohana or some shit. Like,
oh man, that shows an experience. So yeah, moving past that, Ryuji's kind of just wandering about, and then he basically goes outside to just like think for a little bit, but he stumbles into a situation.
yeah, he walks in or out, I suppose, on Taiga trying to confess to Kitamura.
And the important thing is Taiga doesn't see him. He's like, he hides.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Like a proper anime character. Or I suppose really anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that would be my first reaction is just, okay, I'm going to hide.
I'm just going to leave. I would probably just dip.
I'd probably leave first, but then I think he has that thought as well. He's like, maybe I should leave, but I kind of want to know how this goes, so he stays and hides.
But more importantly, he comes down and is like, damn, that sucks.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But basically, Taiga manages to confess successfully, which has never happened in any other anime ever. No one can ever confess.
In episode 2, no less.
In episode 2, behind the school, that's never happened.
I mean, maybe it has, but it's not
Even
important.
if you do it in a visual novel, that's when you have a heart attack.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
it's a good point.
Good Tawa Shoujo reference for you guys. It's a good game. Free. Just try it.
Fun fact. It's a bit explicit though, so just understand.
Yeah.
You're getting yourself into an adult visual novel.
It's a good tangent
Regardless.
to have. But yeah. Kitamura then kind of leads her on and asks her what she thinks about Ryuji, and she's like, she refuses to say that she doesn't like Ryuji. Essentially, she instead decides to say that she doesn't dislike Ryuji. And Kitamura is like, "All right, all right, dog."
Yeah, I took a note here, I think, and it says, Kitamura knows everything already. He is like a god.
Yeah, Kitamura is us at this moment. He's like, he sees
actually,
the pieces.
No, and it's kind of strange, but he's like that. I mean, it's not kind of strange. He kind of just takes that role of being like the benevolent overlord for the entire show. He kind of is like that outside look, impartial, but he knows everything because he's like a god for some reason.
I mean, I don't think it's particularly difficult.
No,
even if she's just done this, be like,
no, it's not. You're lying to yourself. That's basically what he's saying. He's like, what are you saying? Like,
yeah, and I think this is a cool moment because Kitamura is very clearly not really interested in Taiga. I mean, there's very little to imply that he is romantically inclined towards Taiga in any way, and I think it's an interesting tactic to kind of let her down with this move that he's like, you really don't like me, do you? You actually like your friend.
Yeah, she's like, just like really think about it. And of course she doesn't really think about it.
And I think that's where he kind of tries to bait her into saying that she doesn't like Ryuji, and she won't do it. And I think that's when he knows for certain that she, at least on some level, even if she won't admit it to herself, does.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's episode 2. We got a lot to go, but
we do have a lot to go. But then at the end, of that, they walk away. She kicks him in the ass, literally in the ass. Oh, this is it. This is where they say, "You are the tiger and I'm the dragon."
Oh yeah, he does say that, doesn't he? I remember that now. I just didn't make the connection. So basically, Ryuji comes down and is like,
Yeah, yeah. He
"Oof."
says, "You're right. I'm not a dog." Or like, cause he comes down and is trying to help her out, and she's like, "Go away. You're not my dog anymore. I let you go." And then he's like, "Oh, you're not my dog. I'm your dragon, and you're the tiger, and I stand by your side."
Yeah, and this scene's kind of neat because you really get the sense that Taiga legitimately doesn't want to be bothered right now. Like, it's not even like she wants the consolation. She's just upset at how this whole entire situation has played out. And she sees Ryuji, and it's kind of a reminder of what just happened. And I think he's probably the last person she wants to see at this moment.
Basically, what just happens, right? Think about this. She just get rejected by the guy that she thinks she likes, which we've established is not true.
Yeah, and then the guy that she thinks she likes, the guy that he says she likes shows up,
and he just says, "Screw that. I don't care what you say. I don't care if you tell me to leave. I'm going to be here by your side forever. I'll be your dragon." And you like, that's good stuff.
Yeah, I think it really shows Ryuji did kind of grow because of Taiga, because he's willing to take like an assertive stance here. He's actually advocating for himself, which is not something he probably would have done an episode ago. And I think that's Taiga rubbing off on him.
But like, is he? And he's not only advocating for himself, but I think he does this mostly for Taiga's sake as well.
Yeah, this is definitely coming from a mix of both him not wanting to lose his friend, as well as legitimate concern for Taiga, because it's clear she did not take this particularly well.
Well, I mean, and he can't let her just like go back to eating.
Yeah, because he knows
ramen all the time.
If she, he knows if she doesn't do anything, or if he doesn't do anything, she's just probably gonna go home and sulk for weeks. Like, she's that kind of person. So
yeah, it's worth noting that she tears up a little bit before she kicks him in the ass.
Yeah, I think this like kick in the ass is a bit more playful than I think I remember it being. It's less of a legitimate ass kicking and more of a like joke scene.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same way, I think, just obviously overdone because it's an anime, but like if somebody were to give you like a light punch on the shoulder, it's more of that kind of thing.
Yeah,
you're like a fucking asshole, you know, that kind of. But obviously it's an anime, so she does like a fucking roundhouse and kicks him in the ass. But
yeah, and I think this is the moment where I was like, you know, this feels like Yakuza. This feels like a Yakuza game.
What?
Because, all right, so history lesson for all you people that don't know what Yakuza games are like. The main guy is Kiryu. He's called the Dragon of Dojima. He's just a nice guy, but he's a Yakuza member. So when Ryuji's like, "I'm the dragon," I was like, "Oh," and because he legitimately sounds like Kiryu in that moment. Like he's basically saying that he's a nice person, but he's also a dragon. So I don't know. I think it's just kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that Ryuji takes a stance.
Yeah, it's interesting to see as well that this is the first time that Taiga's more emotional side comes before the tsundere. And then she goes back to the tsundere to like cover it up. But usually she's like, "Oh, tsundere," and then emotion.
Yeah, that's a good thing to point out. So I hadn't really noticed that.
I just noticed it right now watching it back. So
yeah.
It goes to show there's always something you see every time you rewatch it, because it's that kind of show.
Most shows are like that.
Most shows are like that because you don't pay attention all that well as a human person.
Yeah, so this ending, I think, is definitely the moment where I'm like, there is 0% chance we end the show without the two of these two people being a couple. It doesn't happen. It's not possible.
If there was any doubt ever,
unless this takes a rapid turn into
unless we like end of
Evangelion this territory. But yeah, this is the moment where you're like, okay, they're a couple. Not yet, but they will be. And then instead of admitting anything like that, they decide, you know
Well,
what? I just got rejected. Nah. Let's
yeah,
try again.
yeah. Tyga's like, fuck that. I don't believe it, or like, I don't give a shit. And then, but they get back together. Like they reinstate their contract basically.
Yeah, and this is the only moment where I'm like, this might be that misunderstanding romance thing where these two characters are probably, from a large portion of the show, I'm betting, gonna be in this relationship because we haven't even had Ryuji's bit yet. Ryuji's gotta do something with Minori, like that's gotta happen. So
Yeah.
that's probably either the next arc or something else. And I know there's characters we haven't seen yet from the OP, so they're gonna come in at some point. God forbid we get a love
throw a
triangle.
wrench in things.
Ooh,
perhaps.
we get a love triangle. I'm gonna be frustrated, but it's gonna happen. I know it's
Going to happen. There's things that are going to happen, and it's going to, because there's 24 episodes, and it can't end before that. So
Yeah.
something's going to happen if we've gotten this far in 2 episodes, you know?
Yeah, and I think the nice thing about having this rapid pace for the first 2 episodes is that it really sets up kind of the arcs that are going to happen, because we have the setup. The audience very clearly knows Ryuji and Taiga are going to end up together, so it's now more about the questions of how we get to that point and what the rest of the cast is going to do, because Minori has also kind of just been a minor character these 2 episodes, and I'm betting she's going to become a lot more major, because there's got to be something like what Taiga and Kitamura had for Minori and Ryuji. There's got to be a moment that Ryuji realizes that he doesn't necessarily like Kinemura as much as, or not. Ooh, yaoi territory. He doesn't like Minori as much as he thinks. So I mean, predict that's going to happen.
It's important to note that Taiga still has not budged an inch on her idea of being in love with Kitamura.
Taiga still 100% is in on Kitamura.
Yeah, that was not the point where she turns around,
but it's the point where I think subconsciously she's got to realize that
there was some wiggle room made.
There's probably not anything there between her and Kitamura, and it's more of a like an infatuation than an actual legitimate like romance. And I think that same thing's gonna have to happen to Ryuji somehow. So that's what I'm predicting. It's gonna happen at some point. But Taiga hasn't changed as a person really in this episode. I think she's definitely just kind of cemented her position.
She's definitely opened up to Ryuji a bit more. I mean, a lot more.
But I think like her personality is still going to be very strong and in your face.
I mean, she's like the selling point of the show. She's got to be a tsundere.
But the same for like still her relationship with Kitamura, which is inevitably not going to happen, but it's still got to be pursued to move the story along.
Right.
Because it's important that they have this 2-character thing. And I mean, there is always the chance that Taiga doing this is going to convince Kitamura that maybe she actually does like him, and maybe Kitamura will decide, okay, maybe I'll go on a date with her or something, and then we have room for more shenanigans.
Then that's when the real shenanigans would begin.
That's when Kitamura's like, that was horrible, I gotta leave, and then we never see him again.
Right, gone. Off the face of the earth.
Off
forever.
the show. Kicked out.
Gone, yeah.
Writers hated him. No. Now he's gone.
But one of the things that this first 2 episodes does a really good job of setting up is that now we are aware that the main conflict is not misunderstandings between these two. It's their own unwillingness to admit their feelings.
Yeah.
Which is something different entirely from so many other like high school romance shows where it's misunderstanding after misunderstanding. They both are like well aware of their feelings, and in the end they work it out. But in this one, it's like the misunderstandings are getting in the way. It's themselves from just not admitting it.
Yeah, and it's not like these people are like unintelligent or something. They're definitely just not realizing their own feelings. Yeah. Like, and that's super understandable.
Again, I think it's what I said earlier is just so ingrained into their own self-image that they are in love with these other people that it's hard to give that up.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to see where it goes from here, because I think this is definitely setting up a lot of drama that's going to happen.
Well, yeah.
And I'm interested to see where that turn is going to be from like comedy to drama. And I don't think
It's
this is
very
the kind of show that's going to change. Like, it's not going to switch genres, but there'll be
no,
moments where I think
it
it's a lot
doesn't
more
switch
dramatic.
genres, but it's gradual. But what I'd say is it basically right now we have a lot more comedy scenes than we have drama scenes, and that basically just the scale basically just tips.
Yeah.
So it never really becomes something else. It just becomes more of one thing than the other,
But I think,
and it's fun to watch.
yeah. I think something important that Toradora has is its cast is all very likable.
Mm.
In a
Even
lot
the
of
ones
shows,
who are unlikable,
yeah,
foreshadowing a bit, are likable in some way, and that comes back down to how believable and understandable and relatable their motivations are, like where they've come from. Once you learn all that stuff, it makes sense, and you can, even if you don't agree with what they do about it, you can see how somebody might act like that. So it's not like, oh my god, this horrible person. It's, yeah, that's kind of a shitty way to go about it, but I can see why. It's like,
yeah, absolutely.
it's like making a good villain in anything, is you got to have believable motivations.
Yeah, and I think it's for anime a lot of the time it doesn't necessarily increase sales to have characters with a lot of depth. Generally, you want them to be striking. You want them to have that personality up
Well, yeah,
front because people will gravitate to that. But the fact that these characters all have more going on, even like Kitamura and Minori, clearly have their own things that we're probably going to get to, and that's like something that's exciting, is getting to see the character growth of the entire cast, not just the main two.
Yeah. But I mean, going back to, the stereotypes sell figures because you got people out there who are like, oh, I like tsunderes, so I'm going to buy all the tsundere figures. Or like, because somebody who, like, if you've got a really 2D, two-dimensional character, it's up to the audience really to fill in the rest of the gaps, I guess, in a way. So you can kind of make a basic tsundere stereotype into whatever you want, I guess. So I don't know. That might be one of the reasons, but
Yeah.
definitely it's always nice to see an actually well-written cast of actually well-written characters. Yeah.
Especially in a romance.
Yeah.
In like a romantic
Refreshing.
comedy.
Refreshing from 2005, 1?
It's not that old, is it? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's especially I've seen a lot of romance shows from this time period of anime, and most of them are bad.
Yeah.
There's a couple of standouts, but most of them are not very good.
2006 started.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, no, this is true for like all anime. There's every genre has 70% just all right or worse, and then like very few better than that.
I mean, even some really good shows from around this time, like our High School Host Club, super enjoyable show, but the characters tend to be one-dimensional and stay that way for most of the show. They don't tend to have a lot of depth. Whereas with this, it's very clear that every character is going to have some modicum of depth.
And of course they can do that because they have a cast of 5 people.
Yeah.
Like Ouran Host Club has like 140 characters, Not really, but
not really, but yeah.
There's so many.
Got a lot. Because like in that show you have the twins, they're the twins. Like there isn't really more to their character than that.
That's also more of a comedy though, from what I understand. I mean,
yeah, I
haven't seen the whole thing myself,
but I think it's important to recognize that this has those comedic elements, but they kind of have more impact because you have characters that mean more to you.
And the comedy also, I mean, like, if you think about it in real life, or not necessarily real life, but like people aren't always bogged down in the drama of their lives. Like there's still going to be ups and downs, and even every day. So it's like, it makes sense that there's going to be a couple of moments every day where they have a joke and they laugh and stuff like that. So it's not like, it adds to their character. It adds a little bit more depth as well in that way, as well as offering some relief from your own drama and emotions.
Yeah. So we've hit the point now where you could have watched 3 episodes of Toradora in the time you spent listening to this.
But you didn't. You listened to this instead.
you listen to this wonderfully meaningful and insightful discussion that probably said very little that hasn't been said before, but exploring this stuff is fun, and that's why we're doing this. So
Yeah. Next week we'll do some more. We don't know which ones yet. We don't know how far we're gonna get.
The way we're handling it is generally we're gonna watch however many episodes. We're aiming for 3 minimum. This week was special because the end of episode 2 has such a perfect cutoff point for the rest of the series that watching more past that, like, we're already at an hour just discussing these 2. So going past that would probably have been just hard to listen to. But we're generally going to aim for like 3 to 5 is I think what we decided on. It'll probably end up being closer to 3, looking at the length of this already, and how much we can say about just 2 episodes. So I'm betting generally roughly 3 episodes per podcast, and we'll be looking at kind of the story as it evolves. There's a chance if something ends up being a long arc or a really short arc, we might combine things or split like one arc into 2 episodes. If that happens, the way we'll probably handle it is just watching through the entire thing beforehand, but discussing it piece by piece.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to do this.
Yeah. So
before we end, right now, I've watched the show before. I don't care. No one cares about my opinion. But right now, how would you rate this opening? Not the whole show. Like, I'm not going to ask for you to give you a rating to the show right away. But like, out of all the other openings to a show that you've seen, the first 2 episodes are like, the intro arc, basically. How does this fare against?
So for the openings of shows, I think this is actually really strong. Which is why it surprises me that I didn't like this last time I watched it. Like, I legitimately had negative feelings with the opening, and I don't know why, because that wasn't really the area where I had problems with the show. But watching it again, and I think analyzing it, really does a lot to show how good it is at actually setting up these characters and leading you into the conflicts that are going to happen and, like, the story of the rest of the show. But I think there are shows that have definitely way stronger openings. Generally, I'd say they aren't romantic comedies. I think a lot of shows that tend to have strong openings are either action or heavy drama. Shows that can push a lot of stuff in their first 2 episodes and have some like major events, or that have like a really interesting premise. Like Full Metal Alchemist, both versions start out with some really cool mini arcs that introduce you to the world and like the magic, and it just kind of is this sense of wonder. But as far as romantic shows go and as far as dramas go, this is up there for certain.
I think it just is definitely one of the better openings for it just introduces the characters, their motivations, and everything like that, and gives us a clue as to what's going to be going on going forward. Just so well that it just does a very good job of opening the show. That's it. I mean, it does what it's supposed to do really, really well.
Yeah, I think I'd compare it to Clanad, where Clanad starts out by introducing you to the main 2 characters, setting up their relationship, and trying to sell you on their like just little character moments. And I'd probably place this above that, because Clanad has a weird pace at the start, and it's very dramatic.
Yeah, that comes down to Clanad being basically not like the romance and the comedy are not split up like. It's not a rom-com, it's a comedy, then a romance, and then horrible sadness. Like, it's...
that show's primarily a drama.
That's different. But I agree. I think this is one of the better openings to a TV show.
Yeah.
To a TV anime that is around.
It's strong. It gets you attached to the characters.
It's very strong.
Yeah, we'll see how that opinion evolves over the next podcast, I think.
I want to do that at the end of every episode. Be like, all right, what do you think of the show now?
Yeah. I think that'll definitely be interesting. So,
because my opinion's not going to change after the 5th time watching it through, I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, I think mine is definitely going to change over the course. I'd probably compare the opening of the show and how it got me invested to My Love Story. That show is also...
I still
has
haven't watched
a really strong opening that sells its characters and
still haven't watched it.
Sets up a lot of cool events for the next. My Love Story is much less of a drama. It's way more of a comedy, and it starts out with a lot of sequences of just showing the characters in their like weird scenarios, and it's a lot of fun. And this kind of hits that same pace where you get introduced to a lot of cool things that are going to happen over the course of the show. Like you're introduced to character conflicts. You have the start of what these characters want, and it's going to go on for the rest. But yeah, that's basically where I'm at. Is I put it above Clanad's opening, probably above My Love Stories as well, but close to it. And then below a lot of action shows, because action shows kind of have an advantage when it comes to openings.
I mean, they don't have to introduce a whole lot. They can just show you a flashy action scene and then be like, yeah, that was fucking sick.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're getting long. We're running long.
We're dragging on here, and I think we've basically said everything we want to say. So yeah, come back next Wednesday and
because
watch the next few
will
episodes.
Be there.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah. And then we're going to keep doing it as long as we can and as long as we have time to do it.
Yeah, and if we get comments or anything like that, we'll make an attempt to reply. Due to the way we record these, so we record these over the course of the week because we're watching the episodes in between each podcast and then releasing on Wednesdays. We're going to be recording between probably the weekends and Wednesday generally. So if we get feedback between those two, we'll have time to address it. If not, it'll probably be brought up later. Yeah, that'll depend. Aside from that, come back next Wednesday and see our next bit that we do on the next few episodes.
Yeah, thanks for listening. It's been a blast. So much fun.
You made it to the end.
You did it.
Yeah, we're done. That's it.
It's over now. Please.
It's over, man.
It's over, man.
Game over.
That's a reference to a TV show. And fun fact, look, if I yell really loud, oh, you can hear me because we're in the same building.
I haven't stopped recording yet. That's a wrap, folks.